Good evening. Everybody can hear me? Good. I'm Ann Cleveland, the Executive Director of the Library Society. Is there anybody who has not been here before? You're supposed to raise your hand. Welcome to the Library Society. The Library Society, for those who are here for the first time, is the second oldest circulating library in America and the oldest cultural institution in the South. I will start by asking you to please make sure your phones are turned off. And I will go ahead and tell you that after the program, you can buy Liz's book, Buxton Books, which is in the back. We'll be happy to sell you her books, and I'm sure you will be happy to sign them. Great. The Library Society, tonight has been almost sort of, even though I've just met Liz and her husband tonight, I feel like it's been old home week because they're both Southerners, they're from Birmingham. The reason we are lucky enough to have them here tonight is because of Bryce Stevens and Zoe, who Bryce grew up with your husband, right? And Bryce always has great ideas, and he said, you know, you would enjoy Liz, and sure enough, I think we will. But it's appropriate that we have an outstanding poet because the South Carolina Poetry Society, which was founded in this building in 1921 by DuBose Hayward and friends, while he was writing Porgy, is the home of the Poetry Society on a monthly basis here every month. And so poetry is greatly appreciated at the Library Society. Words are greatly appreciated. Books are greatly appreciated. I was, in researching a little bit more background on Liz, I read one of the interviews that she had with a guy named Reckon. Mm-hmm. Okay. And he, at one point, said, you know, that there are over 1 million words in the English language that exist, that the average person will recognize and understand about 40,000, but generally only use about 20,000. Which means that words are absolutely important, and no one encapsulates that better than a poet, because you don't write for pages and pages and pages. You have to choose your words perfectly to express what you want. That's a talent that I certainly do not possess, never have, but it's one that we all appreciate. Liz was born, as I said, in Birmingham, grew up there. She went to Hollins and then to San Francisco, and then got her MFA at UMass in Amherst. She's a wife, a mother of 2 boys, and she is I want to hear about the Desert Island Supply
company.
Company. Which helps outreach to underprivileged and needy kids in terms of creative writing. And you are now teaching creative writing. She won a fellowship from the NEA, and she is going to share what I find a compelling and fascinating concept, which is to take the words of one of the more violent, racist figures in Southern history and turn them into poetry that is uplifting. I cannot fathom the ability to do that, and I am so thrilled that we have you with us tonight and that you will share your ideas and your poetry. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Anne. That was a really wonderful introduction. You've all made me feel so at home already, and Chip as well, my husband. And thank you to Zoe and to Bryce, and to Laura and the other Laura, and Dutch, who made this slideshow possible. I really appreciate being able to have a few visuals for this presentation tonight. Also, just to want to thank all of the staff and the trustees of the Charleston Library Society. This is an incredible space, and I have enjoyed touring and looking at the books and the illustrations and the Shakespeare room with a painting of a beheaded queen in the background. That was really awesome. So if you haven't seen it yet, I hope that you can get down there. A call to arms. A man will keep trying to beat the bad energy out of his father's statue until the man and the statue appear to be one mark on a timeline. Applause comes from inside the fire that takes down the stars and removes the difference between one thing and another, between shotguns and hands. Now we have just one word for everything, and we aren't even saying it. We are being said, though we can't quite hear ourselves being said. So, as Anne mentioned, this book is written using only the words found in the letters and public statements of Bull Connor, the iconic Commissioner of Public Safety in Birmingham during the Civil Rights era. I do want to just be clear, this is not an attempt at all to redeem Bull Connor or to sanitize his words in any way. And I'm going to talk a little bit in a moment about that process of creating the book. But I will just say that I am from Birmingham. I was born in 1974. Bull Connor died in 1973. And I grew up in a white suburb of Birmingham and left for college, swearing that I would never move back to the South. I thought of myself to be progressive and educated and righteous, and did not want to be in Alabama. However, after moving to Virginia and then to California and then to Massachusetts and failing to live in the snow with my husband and a baby, we were pulled back to the South where both of our families live in Birmingham. And we've been back for maybe 15 years. In 2013, which is almost a decade ago, Birmingham was celebrating the 50th anniversary of the events that had happened during the Civil Rights Movement in Birmingham. That would be the Children's Crusade, the March in Birmingham, and the memory of the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing, where 4 young black girls were killed. So I had recently moved back to Birmingham. We live in the city. We don't live in the suburbs. And we had also started our DISCO, our nonprofit, where we teach in the schools in Birmingham. And, I mean, of course, I had always heard about the disparities in opportunities and resources in public schools in the city to those compared to the wider suburbs. But I saw it firsthand going into the schools in Birmingham. And so that was, one kind of area of anxiety and frustration at that time for me, but also I realized that Bull Connor lived in my neighborhood. I mean, he was dead, of course, but his house was in my neighborhood. He went to church across the street from DISCO, and he actually attended, DISCO was once a Masonic lodge, and he attended meetings there. So I could not ignore the fact that Bull Connor was still with us in many ways, and I could see the effect that his actions and his words had on our city and the people in our city, and also how, you know, there are things that I was benefiting from, material advantages because of the things that he had done. So that is really where this project began. House of Bull. A man sits alone in a house next door to a man alone in his house next door to mine. One of these houses is yours. We walk over your footsteps. We breathe in the words that you blew out. It has taken 50 years for the sounds of the fireworks to wake us, and we never saw the show. We were children put to bed early. The teacher said, all men go to the same place to dream, but that is not where we go to see you. Every window has your face in it. We can't say which house it is. So, as a poet, as I was beginning this project, I was drawn to Bull's words, and I knew that I wanted to do something with them. I wanted to make something out of them. But I was also kind of looking at other artists and writers to see how they had worked with a text or material. And one thing that I got really stuck on was Nikki de St. Phal. She would take packets of paint, balloons of paint, and attach them to a canvas, and then she would take a rifle and shoot at the canvas. And I watched this over and over again. I don't think this is going to load, but I would go on YouTube and just watch these videos of this artist just shooting at the canvas. It was cathartic, and it was energetic. And I think it spoke to some of the emotion that I was feeling and not sure what to do with. And then another thing that I was looking at, does anybody want to guess what book this was? Heart of Darkness, yes. Has anybody read this book? Okay, yes. So this is Yetta Morrison, and she would take, she took the first chapter of Heart of Darkness, and she erased all but the natural elements. So, and this is blackout poetry or erasure poetry. It's where you take a text and then you take whiteout or a Sharpie and you erase what you want to erase until until a poem emerges. And I can't quite read the whole thing from here, but I think you'll see the very end. It says black night, the earth. But they're very kind of meditative, and it's also a process, I do teach children, and it's a really great process for students to work with because you have the text and then you're just playing, to make a poem appear. And it doesn't always have to make literal sense on the page. But I really love this idea of recycling, of plundering through a text, and of reusing. So that was kind of the place that I wanted to start with Bull. So I started to collect his words. And one thing that I will say too about using Bull Connor's words is that I was very aware, and we're still here, that we're at this moment, at this place, all of us here, actually you really feel it in a space like this, we're right here because of the things that the people before us have said and done and left for us, for better or for worse. And we're now called to hold up those items and to ask whether or not they are useful or meaningful. Do they have value? Did they cause suffering? Should we keep them, preserve them, or destroy them? So I was thinking about those questions when I started to write these poems. And, I'm sure you all have, that grandfather's wing back, those material items that you're kind of wondering what to do with, but also thinking about, our family traditions, our gender roles, our names, anything that might need examining or looking more deeply at. The belongings. We have to work with what has been handed down to us. We eat off the words our grandfathers said. We sleep in them. We place our drinks down upon them. What were we to do with the fur coats but wear them to museum balls on the mildest of winter nights? Heat heavy on our shoulders like a burn from the sun in our great-great-grandmother's vacation. We see our reflection in the sterling set that we have cleaned of its meaning. We could not blame the knife for what it divided. We could not blame stairs for our falls or blame the art for what was praised. We could not destroy everything that was touched. We still have billfolds, swimming pools, hangovers, wingbacks. We had to keep bird feeders, cake plates, neckties, and dice. We kept all of the letters. We kept all of the trees. We moved into the names that were left for us, and we changed the locks. Inside, we feel different now. All sunwink, all meteorite, but our window still looks out over the same city of unearned suffering we will not save. So, here are the words. And they're actually in the section headers of the book, the whole list that I was working from. And, you know, it started very small. There was a point where I had maybe 100 words. I was going to the library, going through the archives, much like I love looking at the archival pieces here, like logs of, furniture logs of who bought what from which furniture maker. But I was going through the files, files and books and finding his words. The main thing that I used was the digitized version of the files that Bull Connor kept when he was in office in Birmingham. So when he was the Commissioner of Public Safety, that's also the era where he was, I'm sure you've seen the iconic pictures of Birmingham of the German shepherds and the fire hoses that he set on the children that, you know, they're so strong they could peel paint off of a wall. So I was, drawn to the words that he was using while in office. But I will say that his the letters, it wasn't just one big beautiful stack of letters that I was going through. It was his files. So there were magazine clippings, there were random kind of inventory of, like buying new office furniture. And the letter on the left is a letter from Bull. And I got to where I could recognize his typewriter. So anything that was signed by Bull Connor, that was the words that I was using. And I did allow myself the street names. This first one, I'm not going to read it. It's an offensive letter, but it's to I think Felix Snow, and that is where I got the word snow. The second one is when an officer. This is not a letter I would have used, but I would always get distracted by this type of letter. In fact, I'll show the next slide as well. But this is when an officer got bit by his own dog, midnight, and I always kind of got so totally drawn into if there was one where an officer got bitten by a bee or stung by a bee in his car, and that was the accident report of what he had to do while he was there. And not to make light at all of that era, but it did feel like you were walking back into time with all of the messiness that's going on around this, deeply violent and disturbing time in Birmingham. And the next two letters, the one on the left, and this also was something I would just get totally stuck on. This is a list of death by fire, just the kind of annual kind of account of how people died by fire. And I will say most of them were smoking in bed in that one. And then on the right is a letter This is just from a woman who's writing to praise and support Bull Connor for closing the parks. When it was time to integrate, there was a federal law to integrate the parks and the golf courses and the public swimming pools, all of that. Bull Connor and his administration just said, well, we'll just close the parks. And so this is a letter in support of that. And the reason I'm showing it now is that it just reminds me, Bull Connor is this kind of cartoonish, iconic figure of racism, like people kind of recognize him. I don't know if you've seen him. I didn't put a picture up here, but, a lot of people would recognize him and his name and associate him with that time. But there were all these kind of normal, regular people. Like this looks like the notepad that my grandmother would keep on her desk in the kitchen. And it just reminds me of that kind of white infrastructure of people who could have and, should have been on the right side of history here, that we're kind of upholding the system of racism in the city that is, still not finished and yet. So, again, I won't read that letter. I don't even know if you can, but I would always just be struck by when I saw something that just felt normal or routine, but was backing up a system of violence and racism. So this is the second poem in the book. And it's kind of the poem that introduces the book to the readers. You've already been introduced, but should you just be picking this up at a bookstore someday? Okay, The Papers of Bull Connor. Snow falls in the form of a last name in your letters. It is always snowing in Alabama in black and white from your typewriter that sits on the desk of 1960 with ring marks and ash. I'll take the words you left for us and make new colors to wear on my lips in oxblood, in trampled plum. I will try to kiss the history out of your words, kiss a cut rose out of the prosecutor, a summer peach from the winter impeachment. I will use only your words now. I'll try not to be afraid to kiss the cottonmouth on the mouth and the filthy mule and the hot iron. When I ask your words what they did, they'll say nothing. They can't remember how they were used. They can be grooms for everyone to marry again. They can be teardrop gemstones, palm leaves, skyrockets. The little black periods in your letters may grow now to be whole notes, whole nights released from their blindfolds. So one thing that I remember is kind of like days where I felt like I got a little win is when I would find a special word, an exciting word. This is meteorite. This is actually a letter responding to a woman who is writing about something about commemorating or acknowledging that a meteorite had hit Alabama, and you can go see where it hit. There's a marker that commemorates that meteorite. But gosh, to get meteorite is pretty exciting as a poet. And so, and cake, there was cake, and of course kissing. I got really excited to use kiss a lot in the book. I think it's an antidote, to all of the darkness and violence, to be able to use, Bull's words to have men kiss men, and to, just to have lots of kissing going on in the book. But, or to kiss the cottonmouth. So there was kind of a turning point too, where I felt like I had enough words. In fact, I wrote in my journal, I feel rich with words now. There was a point where I was like, okay, this isn't so municipal anymore. I feel like a little more free. And then I just started to live with the words. I would just sit in front of these words, just like that, and just sit with them. And I was living my life, So we were caring for loved ones. I had parenting young children. I was teaching in the schools, and as I like to say, just kind of fucking around, just having thoughts and writing them down. So There, and also I think what also just happened was I started to remember a lot. I remembered growing up in Birmingham. I remembered why I moved away. I remembered being in San Francisco. Just kind of memories, using the words to write about the past. And this is a poem that takes place or remembers San Francisco. It's called The Davids. We were pennies dropped from separate jets, landing in the same glass. These are the redwoods we drove through on the edge of the country as far as we could get and still feel attached to our mothers. Grass hills the color of light beer. This is where I waited for the bus and my headphones and cords. That's the trail where I ran on Saturdays, passing the same black comb pressed into the sand. The first time I saw the comb, I was thinking about David. And then every time I passed it, I thought about David. And then the other David. I want to show the redwoods how happy I am now. They make their own rain. This is where I heard for the first time he couldn't find his way out of a wet paper bag. On the 22nd floor of the Bank America building, where I sent my boss to the wrong city in Texas for a meeting. I could not find my way out of my own name. In front of that building, there is a work of art made of black rock, the banker's heart. It pulls down the sky between city buildings. Nobody could pick him up. I come back here to run out of my body again. 2 Davids, one alive, expecting a son, and one gone so long I don't remember where I saw him. Where's that clock? Wait, how's our time? What time is it? Okay. I know there is a clock, though. I just can't see it. Let's see. Oh, yes. Okay. So I'm gonna read 2 more poems, and then we'll have time to talk. Or if, I'm happy to read more, or you can ask questions, or just go to signing, whatever you like. But I'll read another. There are no fun poems. I try to find fun poems, but there are really not that many fun ones. But this is just a regular mothering poem. I've talked to several of you tonight about being a mom and not having time to read, and just trying to stay connected to your intellectual life during that time. This is The Still Life. I can't breathe out of this picture of a window. When exactly does the morning end? Today I am thankful for 5 things, but I only have one of them. It's lunch. I want lunch to last until bedtime. I need a metal detector to help me find my car. Can you make the sky look less hot? Does this afternoon come in sleeveless? If I could keep just 1 minute, I would not keep this one. What part of the playground speaks to you today? None of it? The sky is running out of ink. We have monkey bars and 3 more minutes before I must figure out how to type us home. So one of the very last things that I did was go visit Bull Connor's grave. It is in Trussville, which is another city near Birmingham. I guess it's a city, a municipality. It is where I would go to, there's a laser tag arcade in Trussville where birthday parties often happen. So I never knew that when I was driving out there that I was passing the cemetery where Bull Connor's grave is, and it's nothing special. It looks like this. It had some flowers on it, some old flowers the day I was visiting. But I thought it necessary to at least close the project by visiting his grave. And this is Jefferson Memorial Gardens, Theo Eugene Connor. All all the maze you have lived fly over your grave this afternoon. An aircraft pulls, and of course, across a Gulf sky, though we are far from the Gulf, Water Oak. Unreal flowers drop their real colors onto your name in metal turned lake green. You may be swimming under the skin of the land. You may be alive again in the form of a fat lamb, a black snake, a bullhorn, a traffic jam. How would I know? You may have come back as me. From way up above, we must appear to be the same thing. Beyond a border of trees, police officers run practice drills, bullets in the air where bird notes used to be. You really left me nothing. You did not know that I would exist, but you made a way for me anyway, to have what I did not own. We remain on separate sides of the same side of something as flat as the moon in a drawing of the moon. Okay. I would be happy to take questions. Thank you. So if you have any questions or comments or yes.
Can you talk a little bit about your process, how you exhumed these words?
Yeah. Yeah, so I would, I started by reading books about Bull Connor, so that's where I would, find a quote from him, something he had said, and I would take the words and I would put them directly into a spreadsheet. And so I would just keep adding, and that's how, this really is what they look like. And then, oh, it went away. It's okay. Now we get this beautiful. There he is again. Thank you. But then I would go back and sit in front of the words, and I would just start to individually pull words to make a sentence, or I would be drawn to a word, or if I was really kind of feeling like, leading with chance, then I would randomize the words and then take a column and then see if that could make, a starting for something. But there wasn't one specific way that the poems were written, and eventually I knew so many of the words I had, and I knew some words that I didn't have. There were some words that I kept wanting to use, like shadow, and I knew I didn't have it, but I'd keep my writer's brain would try to sneak it in. Oh, and in fact, plane is also like airplane. I didn't have that, and I kept in fact, I almost sent it to the printer with the word plane in it because it somehow subconsciously snuck back in, but I got it out. So, yeah.
So you stay true to your part. I mean, every word.
Every word is from this list.
Manually. I figured there's some app or something that does that.
That'll be next. We'll have an app for that. Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much. It was lovely reading. I have two questions. One is there a word that you wanted to use but you didn't make it in?
Such a good question, yes.
Second, maybe a darker question is have you had any contact with his family, or has there been any outreach from people that were in his family?
No, I'll answer that one first. I mean, poetry, you would not know it being here, but it's just not that big of an arena. I don't think word has really gotten to the family that this exists, and I don't know that it would matter. I did a little kind of researching in the beginning to see if I knew anyone related to the family. I think he just had one daughter, but I haven't heard anything yet, and I don't know that I will. But balloons. There was a letter about asking permission. An organization wanted to drop balloons over the city for something, commemorate something, and I wanted to use the word balloon, but I never. It's in the word list in the book, but I never got it in there. Yeah.
Did you find language that we would not use now that we would be uncomfortable using, and did you use it?
I did find it. I did not use it. The N-word was in his letters, and I I did not put it even in the book as part of the list. And then there were some archaic spellings of words, and I never used his words as a sentence. Like I never took his words, even, like 2 or 3 words that I know of together. Like, so he doesn't actually speak in the book, yeah. I don't remember any other words in particular that were as scary as that word.
Did anything of Connor's sensibility or rhetoric percolate up into the writing that you couldn't control?
Well, I would see him joking a lot. Like, what's the word? Not bastard, but there was something that he was calling somebody else in a letter, kind of tongue-in-cheek, like reprobate, let's get us reprobates together, or something like that. Is that like an archaic word for, when do people use that word? I don't know. Like, it's bad though, isn't it? I mean, isn't it like bastard? No? I'm looking at Chip because he's the word person, that would know, and he's like, believe me, he will tell me later exactly what the context for it. But yeah, what does it mean? Yeah.
No, I don't know what it means.
Oh, okay.
Did you allow yourself to use different tenses of the words?
Yeah, I did. Okay, so I would allow plurals, but not like mouse to mice. That's too far, But a plural, I would allow it to add an S onto a word, and then. There are no mice or mouse, and there's not a mouse in the book. Yeah, I don't even know if there was a mouse in the letter, but that's just an example. But and tenses, yes, as long as it did not really change the word too much. Yeah.
I'm curious about his question, which you didn't answer.
What was it? I forget. Yes. So well, it's just that is such a good question because reading his letters, you do get a sense of his personality, and I think if you were on his side, he probably made you feel pretty warm and good, and you wanted, he clearly was a magnetic character that moved people, and so that would come up in the letters. I don't think it ever crossed over into the book, but possibly it did, and it's always, like in the last poem, you just wonder, or you assume that we would be on the same side, right? I mean, we look the same, we're from the same place, or we're from, so there's kind of this assumption, or I am from the white neighborhood that, to this day still is depleting resources from the cities that are primarily, the schools that are primarily black. So, that is far away from your question, but so to feel like I'm chummy with him in some ways, I mean, he probably would be chummy with me, right? I don't know.
Did you go into this project thinking that you were going to use the words to write poems about racism or schools that aren't being treated fairly or people not being treated fairly, or was it more as a purist poet? I mean, the playground poem was hysterically funny, and obviously certainly for any mother or father who's been in a hot playground situation, identified with. But that stands apart from sort of a darker tone to some of the other poems. And I didn't know whether that was intentional as far as trying to get away from using the words from a man whose past was he was a reprobate.
Yes, okay. I think it was both, and at times, there were times when, I was walking back into these words from all the things that we're all, feeling and experiencing every day, so there are days where I was a parent, and there are days that I was a teacher. There were days that, things were happening. There were mass shootings, there were, elections, all the things that are happening that stir us up. That was all happening, and I think that's what art is best at, is when you have all of these things at once. I was thinking about Virginia Woolf saying, I feel like I've been harnessed to a shark, we just feel kind of, you're just carried, erratically through your life. for things that are happening personally to the things that are external that you do or don't have control over. So sometimes it was that, I was coming in hot with something that was super upsetting and disturbing from, where I live, and other times it was, like I said, it was just fucking around. So just like, Yes.
It strikes me that a lot of the letters are about like resisting change or progress.
Mm-hmm.
In light of like the last 2 weeks of news
Right.
about like
Mm-hmm.
if you dug deep on the Alito brief, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay. Another way to see someone or some people resisting change.
Mm-hmm.
You noted the letter writer, the grandmother's like
Yeah.
notepad.
Mm-hmm.
And you must have seen a lot of people that were like completely on board with that
Mm-hmm.
in his correspondence.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious, like, how it's resonated with you lately about like people who are just anti-change. I don't want to make it like call it progress, but he seems like such a figure. You said he was an iconic racist figure, but
Right.
really, like, he took a stand and had a really big role in
Yes.
trying to stop change.
Yes, and he had support. I mean, I think it's the support that and the complicity and the silence that you get stuck with, because like the man at the top, often you're not going to change, but it's like, how is this happening to these people around you? Yes, that still resonates, and I'm not even sure what to say about that. I will say one thing that this is such a white-centered project for obvious reasons, but I was, turning to Black writers and thinkers constantly, and I think that's really kind of our role now, is we're, trying to figure out how to solve some of these problems that just aren't going away even after the civil rights movement. Brian Stevenson, Nicole Hannah-Jones, the poet Saeed Jones, K.A.C. Lehman, Jessamine Ward. I think really that is important, and kind of part of the solution is to really, and the solutions are out there. I mean, Ta-Nehisi Coates, if you read his essays and books, I mean, we don't have to solve everything immediately, but there are solutions that are available, that we need to get on board with and support however we can. Yes.
So many thoughts. This is so heavy. Thank you for doing this project. Sorry, I didn't think I was going to get emotional. I really wish my grandmother could be here. She's still alive. She's 107, but she's at the point now where she sleeps more than she's awake. But I know she would love to be a part of this conversation. This is fantastic.
I appreciate that.
I hope that it garners more recognition, particularly with people in the Black community. I have 3 friends that I can think of where we can have very open conversation and ask each other questions about our experiences as, we are white and obviously Black. But I love those relationships. And if you don't have, I'm just putting this out there, if you don't have relationships with people that don't look like you, or that don't look like you, you can't have open conversations. That's where it starts. That's really where it starts. They didn't realize how much I hide my thoughts, my feelings, my opinions, not just from the world, but from even them. And I even shared with them that, and I'm sharing this with you, when I started school, I'm from Charleston, by the way, grew up downtown, graduated of Ashley Hall, and when I started there were people that referred to my mother as my mammy, because I was at that time I was questionably very polite, but old Tanner, it's got older. But people refer to her as my mammy because my classmates had mammies. And I'm 44, but that's not a long time ago. It really isn't. And one of my friends I shared with her said, you know, I can't look at you and I can't just tell if you have family members that are part of alt-right or KKK or whatever. There's no way for me to look at you and tell. I have to trust you. I have to trust that you're not going home and telling your family, your friends, everything that we're talking about, and that you aren't putting a target on my back in some way, shape, or form. I can't look at anybody who is white and tell that just by looking. It's up to us to have these open conversations. It's the only way that happens. So I said all that kind of like to lead into the letters that you posted. We didn't want to read them out loud, but read them out loud. The words are already on the
Right.
Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, yes.
It's just a matter of putting them together the way he did, and I think that's okay. It's 2022, it has to be okay. If we can look at the artwork that's in the Gibbs right now, where that features lynchings, then certainly we can read letters to and from anyone, because otherwise we're not able to put the pieces of history together. The good, and the bad. I love that you said the good and bad. It's important. So thank you so much for doing this.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Have you thought about doing a sequel using like John Lewis?
You know, it's funny. I tried. I thought that I was going to do gun violence. I thought I was going to go to gun shows and take the words from, and this was long before this book was even finished, or I didn't know had so far to go. So I, went to one gun show in Birmingham and was just so depressed afterwards, just from the measly food court to the guys who showed up in full just war gear, or I just was and all of the accessories for hiding your gun in your underwear. I thought it would be someone should do it. Someone should do it. It would be great. I will read it, but it's not me. So. All right, any more questions? Y'all have been just a delightful audience. I appreciate this so much.